Well, for more analysis on President Xi Jinping's speech and this virtual Davos, CGTN's Rachelle Akuffo spoke to Sourabh Gupta. He's a resident senior fellow at the Institute for China-American Studies. He starts off by giving us his reaction to President Xi's speech.
My biggest takeaway was that he once again struck a cautionary tone. You know, the last time he spoke in Davos was 2017 when Trump had just been elected and had just entered office. And he had talked in cautionary tones at that point of time that a trade war hurts everybody. And I think yet again, it's that putting out a word of caution that we shouldn't be getting down into a new Cold War, whether on the economic front or on the hot military front. And I think that's an important takeaway.
And he certainly did say that what he called the misguided approach of antagonism and confrontation, being it in the form of Cold War, hot war, trade war, or tech war, will eventually hurt all countries' interests and undermine everyone's well-being. How do you think this message is going to be received internationally, especially as now President Biden is taking the helm at the US?
Well, I think it will be actually warmly received and well received generally internationally. And frankly, I think also in the US too. You know, let me explain. Trump had his trade war, had his technology war, and then, of course, unfortunately, we had COVID strike. The US is still trying to come up to speed with what it wrought on the international system and by blowback on itself. And meantime, what China did in the interim time was lay out very strong commitments on climate change, go and complete a very ambitious investment pact with the Europeans. And so what might happen is that if one goes down the negative path, one gets trapped in it and it might just end up hurting oneself. Others might actually be moving forward. And I think that is one important lesson which will come out of the past few years and from what President Xi spoke today.
And certainly that sort of perfect storm of being in the middle of a trade war and having a pandemic strike was really a very hard hit for businesses all over the world. Now, you mentioned the last time that President Xi spoke at Davos back in 2017. Obviously, a lot has changed then with the pandemic and the trade war as well. Did we get a sense of any major shift in priorities, though, from the last time he spoke in terms of the agenda?
Not exactly. You know, again, he placed a great deal of emphasis on international cooperation, while also a bit of talk in terms of understanding people's differences and accommodating people's differences. But fundamentally, it was about multilateralism and about international integration and working together as a global community. So I think those areas are the areas he focused on. But we have to remember in this interim time, there's been some important, you know, I talked about the investment agreement with the Europeans. China in 40 years would never have done this with Europe first and then America later. America was always prioritized. But China has now done this with Europe because it sees an uncertain partner in the Americans. And of course, we've had important moves on climate change and in global public health, etc. And so I think, yes, that subtext has changed also in terms of the dual circulation policy. And now China sees itself going forward as part of its next 5-year plan. So while he talked cooperation, China has been moving forward in its own way. And if cooperation is not going to be had internationally, we're all going to get worse off, but it's not necessarily China which is going to suffer that much, ironically.
So then what did we hear from other world leaders and other experts who also, you know, gave their commitments or voiced their concerns?
Well, I think the emphasis is on, again, trying to rebuild multilateralism, rebuild and work together. Our eyes have been opened in as big a way as could possibly be with this pandemic. Nobody expected we'd be living lives the way we do today. It's essential that everybody bind together, get together, and try to address these challenges. And I think there is a new awakening in this regard. Nothing more. Something which is utterly fundamental here is that Davos itself is being done virtually. It is being done successfully, and that the way we live our lives are being changed and being shaped and changed dramatically in some respects.
And do you think anything either helps or hurts by having this virtual format, being that you can't really have those sort of in-person dialogues?
Yes, it does. It does hurt. I mean, it's great that we have these virtual formats, and it's opened up a secondary avenue by which we can also transact and conduct business. But people-to-people interaction is essential, and hopefully by the middle of the year onwards, or at least by the time we come to the UN General Assembly session this fall, we will all be meeting in person and finding common avenues and pathways forward.